Good morning, Canada. Welcome back to an episode of Question. Today's December 10th, 2024. And boy, oh boy, oh boy, we are running out of time before Christmas break. We got, T-minus 1 week of question period. We got today's Tuesday, we got Wednesday, we got Thursday, Friday's usually meh, and then we got Chrystia Freeland tabling the fall economic update when it's almost 2025 on Monday, and then I think Tuesday is supposed to be their last day. So we are really running out of time before they take off. They take a hike, bud, for the holidays, and they're not really set to resume until January 27th or something crazy. That's at the end of January. So it's very important that you pay attention to what's going on now while we still have the clown show available. Welcome back to the live stream, everybody. Before we get into it, I do want to encourage y'all to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet already. It does phenomenally help with the growth. I think we just crossed 125,000 subscribers here on House of Canada, which is awesome, like tremendously awesome. And I'm so grateful to just have this community and be able to share this platform and these types of streams and things like that with you guys. So I think we're going to have a really good day today. You have Justin Trudeau, who is scheduled to be in the House. He finally showed up to his job. Yesterday, he missed the vote of non-confidence. He voted digitally, of course, but he was in Halifax. He was on the East Coast to beat a bad guy. And he's finally back. So we're going to have to wait and see how this plays out for him today. And I want to put a stop to something. I've seen this a couple times. I saw it yesterday. in the comments, and I saw it today, this morning, before I went live. I saw it in the pre-lobby or whatever you want to call it. And I'm seeing it again right now. People are saying, let's get Jasper to wear a suit. Let me stop you right there. I'm not a suit kind of gal, all right? I don't do that. Look, I'm barefoot. I'm wearing pants, but I'm barefoot. You see my feet? I'm barefoot. You saw how dirty the bottom of my feet are? I'm barefoot all the time. I'm a hippie, okay? That's why I got long hair. You see that long hair? I got long hair. I'm a hippie. I don't have a suit. I don't even think I have a suit. I have a dress shirt somewhere. I got dress pants. I probably have dress shoes somewhere. But I rock sandals as long as I can into the snow. No suits, no ties, no tuxes. Not happening, all right? If I ever go to Parliament, I'm going in my sandals. And if it's cold out, I'm going to be wearing socks too. I don't dress up. I don't do that stuff, okay? I don't do that stuff. Someone says a hobbit? Sure, call me a hobbit. I lived in a van, broski. Down by the river, down by the ocean, all right? I'm a hippie at heart. No suits. So stop it. Stop putting suits. Stop brainwashing the other audience members. All right. We got a couple news stories here to get through before we get into the House. They are currently in the House. I'm pointing here to my other monitor. Of course, you can't see. I could point anywhere. I could point that way. I could point that way. It doesn't matter. I'm pointing to myself. I don't know why I'm doing that. We got a couple things to go over before we take a look at what's going on in the House. So just doing boring stuff right now. Nothing important. So you're not missing anything. But what you are missing is following me on X. If you're not following me on X, I highly recommend that you guys do that. I'm going to tell you why. Because last night, 13 hours ago, I posted this right here. I posted this screenshot of President-elect Donald Trump, President-elect, who said on his Truth Social account, "It was a pleasure to have dinner the other night with Governor Trudeau of the great state of Canada." He's trolling Canada. He's trolling Justin Trudeau again, calling him the governor of Canada. I look forward to seeing the governor again soon so that we may continue our in-depth talks on tariffs and trade, the results of which will be truly spectacular for all. Okay, I posted this. This is 10:02 p.m. my time. Okay, that's just over 12 hours ago. And then you've got on CTV's social media account 2 hours ago. 2 hours ago. So come on, folks. Come on. You want the news? You want it quick? You want it fast? Go over and follow me on X, Mistersunshinebaby. All right. The link is also in the description for those that need to click the link. Let's get into this video here, shall we?
Trump calling Trudeau the governor of the great state of Canada. Another apparent reference to his frequent joke of our country becoming the 51st state. Eric Ham joins me now. He's our CTV News political analyst with more. Eric, good morning to you. So Trump does not seem to be putting to rest this joke about Canada. I'm going to call it a joke. What's he getting at? Your reaction to this? Why would he say this again this morning? Is it likely in response to the Prime Minister saying yesterday that we may have to, in Canada, impose tariffs on the U.S. as a retaliatory measure if these 25% tariffs that Trump likes are put into place?
I think when we see Donald Trump use language like this, and he does it over and over again, what this is making clear is that Donald Trump is preparing to go to battle against a perceived enemy. And right now, Donald Trump sees Canada and Mexico as that enemy. And right now, he's using very demeaning language against both countries. Now, it's important to note that what Donald Trump is doing also is he's conflating two very separate issues. He's conflating the issue of the trade imbalance between the two countries, as well as the ongoing migrant crisis here in the United States. Now, it's also important to note that Donald Trump himself is the one who actually negotiated the U.S.-Mexico-Canada free trade agreement. So if there's any imbalance against the United States, it actually has to do with what Donald Trump actually negotiated. We have to remember, not only did he negotiate that deal, but he was the first one to sign on to it. And so now what we're seeing here is clearly Donald Trump, I guess, thinks that he can get, or he wants, a better deal, both on trade as well as on the issue of immigration. And the question is, how far is Donald Trump willing to go to get that? Is he going to try to break up the U.S.-Mexico-Canada free trade agreement? And also, is he going to go through with these tariffs that would certainly be very debilitating on the United States? And it's also important to note that Donald Trump is not only looking at tariffs against Canada and Mexico, but also against China. So the United States and consumers in the U.S. are looking at right now some massive hurt and pain as if these tariffs actually come down. And Donald Trump has made clear he knows just how debilitating they will be for the economy and for U.S. consumers.
Okay, so some analysts say these comments from Trump are gentle ribbing and we should almost see it as flattery. Others say it's a bullying tactic. How does Canada then negotiate with the U.S., with the Trump administration, when they may not be taking Canada seriously?
Yeah, I think that's the main question that Canada is going to have to answer. Also, too, we know that Donald Trump likes to win every news cycle. And so it's clear he wants to make sure that he stays in the spotlight and top of the mind of the media, which is why we're all talking about this. Because, of course, it's what Donald Trump does on his first day in office and what he does subsequently, I think, is what's going to matter most. Will he actually go through with these tariffs? We know that Canada has already been very aggressive on the migration front. And so, again, the question becomes, what exactly is Donald Trump prepared to do? And is he going to attempt to try to renegotiate once again the U.S.-Mexico-Canada free trade agreement? In addition to all of that, we already now are seeing that there are barbs being lobbed between Canada and Mexico with some of the comments made by President Claudia Sheinbaum about Canada. And so I think Donald Trump is loving all of this because now what he is seeing is not only is the United States going to war with Canada and Mexico, but now he's got both of those countries fighting against each other. And I think this is now a place where Donald Trump really wants and enjoys being, in a place where there's chaos, and it's chaos of his own making.
And he's not even in the White House yet. Eric Ham, thank you so much. Glad you could join us this morning. Eric is our CTV News political analyst.
Holy smokes, man. Look, they can try to go toe-to-toe against Trump. It's just not going to work. It's not going to work. And Justin Trudeau's response to the original 25% tariffs that were threatened against Canada is that he's going to now have a retaliatory response. Instead of trying to comply, instead of trying to negotiate, Trudeau, on behalf of Canada, is going to, or plans on threatening America with tariffs. This is not good. We're not suited for a trade war with America. And I get it. I get why he would try and do that, right? Because we have leverage. Canada actually has leverage kinda against America. We're their largest exporter. It's huge. We provide a lot economically for America, but that's about it. That's about it. And we don't have any other leverage. And so when it comes time to, getting down into the weeds, I don't think Trudeau is doing the right thing. And I don't think he can get out on top if he goes and threatens more tariffs on America as a retaliatory response. That's just not going to work. It's like being bombed and firing off more bombs. It's just going to escalate. We've seen this, right? All the wars, the trade wars, all the real wars that are happening. Nobody wins in that instance. But that's my opinion, folks. I'd love to know yours. Next up, we've got Jagmeet Singh, who's not too happy when a reporter asks him about the Maserati. After True North revealed the NDP leader Jagmeet Singh was spotted in a Maserati on Parliament Hill, Singh says he nor any of his family members own a Maserati. A 2024 Maserati Levant ranges from $127,000 to $213,800. It's a lot of money for a car. Let's take a look.
Are you able to say whose Maserati you got into the other day?
It's definitely not mine, not any of my family, and it was a pleasure seeing you all today. Take care. Thank you.
Can you just clarify? Is it a staff member?
And then he walks out, and then that's it. He runs away from his problems. Typical Jagmeet Singh, right? Can't take any accountability. It's not mine. It's not anyone I know. It's not my family's. Dude, we all saw it. You're really going to try and gaslight your way out of this? That should be a crime. It should be a crime for a politician, a federal politician, to just lie like that. That doesn't make any sense. And speaking of lying like that, we have to take a look here at Chrystia Freeland, who's I don't know how she's going to lie her way out of this. This is not good. In a leaked report, this is also why you should follow me on X, folks. Look at this. I posted this the other day, 280,000 views. Come on. What are you guys doing? Go follow me on X. Mistersunshinebaby. In a leaked report, Chrystia Freeland, turns out that there's a $60 billion deficit.
Officials have leaked to the media that the deficit will be $60 billion or more. So is it going to be that higher or lower?
Mr. Perkins, because a Conservative filibuster has blocked the work of our Parliament.
Minister, the only filibuster is your unwillingness to produce the documents. but I would ask you a simple question. Is the deficit going to be higher or lower than the $60 billion your officials have leaked to the media?
I think that it is very important not to cast any doubt on Canada's financial credibility. So I want to take this opportunity to be very clear that Canada's fiscal position is strong and sustainable and continues.
Yes or no? It's a simple question. Why won't you answer whether or not it'll be above or below 60 billion?
What's wrong with casting doubt on Canada's financial credibility or stability? Like that's ridiculous. Don't question it. You shouldn't be able to question it, folks. Look, this face right here, this coincidental freeze frame of Chrystia Freeland, that sums up her job. That sums up her ability to actually be able to get anything done. That face right there, like drunk, right? Drunk, and someone flashes a light on your face. Come on, man. Are you kidding me? We all can see that there's a massive deficit. Why are you lying to people? Why are you lying? This is why she's postponed things as long as possible. She's going to try and find a way to fudge the numbers. And that's why you're going to have the Conservatives, likely Andrew Scheer and other politicians, other people that have that law background. They're going to meticulously go through it. And they're going to find a bunch of crap. This is going to be the most controversial economic update. I'm telling you, mark my words. Next up, we're going to take a look here at Justin Trudeau, who's saying, let's not be that kind of country in Canada. What could he be referring to? Let's take a look.
Your thoughtfulness. I hope some of the things I said actually, pierce through the haze of challenging situations everyone's in. Canadians are fundamentally thoughtful about the kind of future we want, the kind of solutions we're going to put forward to improve our communities, to improve our neighborhoods, to build a better set of opportunities for our kids. And every election is about that as we approach what will be an election year next year. And my only request for everyone is to be really thoughtful and go into the choices you make with eyes wide open. I think there's a number of folks in different countries, and I won't point out any particular one, where folks are going to be wondering about the choice they may be made in elections. Let's not be that kind of country in Canada. Let's be deliberate about the choices we make. If we want to stop fighting climate change, if we want to re-legalize assault-style weapons, if we want to put back into question women's rights, if we want to scrap $10 a day childcare across the country and stop delivering free dental care to vulnerable seniors, then in a democracy, that's a choice people can make. Get rid of the CBC, too. That's a choice.
Hey, now we're talking.
But let's take on the responsibility as electors, as thoughtful agents of change in our communities, to be smart about, no matter how much we want change, let's not fall into an easy trap of voting for change for the worse. Canadians deserve better, and I know they're going to pick it.
Let's kick his ass out of office. Holy crap. This guy finally said something that we can all agree with. Let's defund the CBC. Day one, man. Come on, are you kidding me? What the hell is wrong with Trudeau? Like, seriously, what the actual F is wrong with Justin Trudeau? You go to any polls, you look at any polling update, and he's absolutely tanking in the polls. Look at this one here. He went from 63 projected seats down to 47. Pierre's at 227. And even on the low end, 201 projected seats. Like, this is crazy. Like, it's not even close. Like, who does this guy think he is? He actually thinks that he stands a chance, and they're bragging. Oh, we survived the non-confidence. We survived. Bits is showing that the House doesn't have confidence in Pierre Poilievre. Like, oh my God. That's not how an election goes. An election is up to the people, not to the politicians. People, you and me, elect the politicians. They don't get to elect themselves. This is horse shit. He's the worst prime minister in Canadian history. Get his ass out of here. Get his ass out. Come on. And I mean, to add the cherry on top here, we got another clip. Same talk in Halifax. Let's see what he's got to say in this one.
But if you're a middle-class family, and if you're living in rural areas, we give a 20% top-up because we know you have to drive further to go to school, to drop to school or work. We're giving you that money back. And if you make a decision that reduces the amount of fuel you have to buy, you get a heat pump, for example, where there's a great program to get heat pumps that we're doing across Atlantic Canada, you actually keep more of that $800 that we're...
Bro, shut the hell up. I just replaced my furnace that sits 20 feet away from me right here. I just replaced my furnace. You know how much it was? It was $6,000 to replace my furnace. It was like 20 years old. It was on the kaputs. It wasn't good. Had to be done. And I asked the guy, I was like, hey, man, Northern BC. That's where I'm located. I said, hey, any rebates on this stuff? Probably should have asked beforehand, but he was here installing with his crew. And I said, any rebates on this stuff? And he's like, not unless you get the heat pump. And I laughed hysterically, almost like a psycho. He probably thought I was crazy. The heat pump. Okay. Entertain me. It gets to minus 40 here for weeks. I said, okay, what's the cost? I just bought a furnace for $6,000. How much would it have been if I bought the heat pump? Keep in mind, heat pump doesn't work for several months out of the year where I live. Useless. And he's talking about the East Coast. They also have harsh winters. You know what he said? He's like, man, it's like 25 grand. $25,000 for a heat pump and a furnace. Or $6,000 for a furnace. Am I missing something? That seems a little crazy to me. But you get a little rebate. Oh, here's a little bit of money back. Here's just a couple $1,000. So it's not $25,000. It's $22,000 after your rebate. Come on, man. Come on. I'm dumb. I'm not that dumb. That doesn't make any sense. That doesn't make any sense at all.
We're sending you because the carbon price will only cost you $700 or $600 or $500 a year. So it's a way of fighting climate change that puts money back in the pockets of people who are on the front lines doing that fighting, ordinary families. That's the policy. You know, it just took me 4 minutes to explain it to all of you. And in politics these days, we don't have 4 minutes nearly often enough. We're not having real conversations around politics now. We're having, 7-second TikTok videos. We're having a bumper sticker.
Yeah.
Or a flag.
Yeah.
I'm around.
Yeah.
That's political discourse and debate.
Not just a bumper sticker, folks. Right here, look at this beautiful sticker. Keep calm and never vote Liberal. You want one? The link is in the description below. Click that juicy link that says buy a sticker pack and use code Sunshine for 15% off. Justin Trudeau just said it's a great idea to do so. He's promoting it. Even though this is about keep calm and never vote Liberal, which should be for him, he wants you to buy these. He wants you to proudly have it. It's awesome. Yeah. Hey, look, I agree with that.
Of course, it's easy to say taxes bad.
Taxes are bad.
Like Frankenstein when I was doing that, but okay. Fire bad. But having conversations about how we actually solve the challenges we're facing in this world in thoughtful ways, how we reduce our emissions and support hardworking families, that's a more complex answer than my opponents actually want you to have, want you to actually reflect on. And I remain confident that if Canadians really understand that there is a clear choice to be made about the kind of country we want to live in,
it's one without.
Do we bring everything we're doing to fight climate change to a screeching halt?
Yes.
Because that's what's on offer from the Conservatives.
Yes.
No plan to fight climate change.
I'm glad we agree.
I wonder how many people will actually choose that.
All.
Because right now, however unpopular it may seem, our price on pollution is part of the most successful plan to fight climate change that is bending the curve on our emissions faster than any of our peer countries. And
nobody cares about your fucking climate change. Nobody cares. Times are tough, buddy pal. Times are tough. And we all got bills to pay. We all got furnaces we need to replace. $6,000. $6,000's a lot of money for a singular furnace. Sure, it's only supposed to happen every 20 years, but everyone's got groceries they need to buy. Everyone's got rent or a mortgage. Everyone's got bills to pay. And I'm sorry if the world is burning. I don't give a shit. I don't. Life is too expensive to care about that stuff. So take your taxes and shove them where the sun don't. Man, I was on to something good and I just had to stutter. Come on, man. Come on. We don't care about your taxes, Trudeau. We don't care about paying more money to solve turtles living longer. I want plastic straws because they're not going to disintegrate when I'm drinking out of a straw. Sorry. That makes me a bad guy. Then I'm a bad guy. I'm a bad guy. I'll take it. I'll take it right on the chin. I'm a bad guy because I want to have plastic straws. It's the end of the world, I guess. It's the end of the world. This doesn't make any sense. There's a lot of money from regular taxes. There's a lot of money. A tremendous amount. But these people are so bad. They're so bad at managing. They're mismanaging all of the money. So they need to bring in more and more and more. And we're still running in massive deficits. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. I wish there was an actual professional economist, accountant that went through all this money and said, oh my God, what are these people doing? It's horrendous. No wonder we're struggling. They're lining their pockets. You should never have a rich prime minister. It doesn't make any sense. Trudeau's net worth from 9 years ago, he's skyrocketed to over $100 million. What? That doesn't make any sense. He's not a king. Don't reward him like a king. That doesn't make any sense. He's a public servant. He should be barely scraping by, using minimum resources, and yeah, he's got protection, he's got security, all of that, sure, but you're not living a lavish life. You're there working for people, so other people in the country, the 41 million plus people that live in Canada, can have an opportunity to live in a lavish life. You shouldn't be living a lavish life as the Prime Minister. This is ridiculous. It's all backwards. It doesn't make any sense. Let me know down in the comments what you guys think of Trudeau, like with that speech. It's bananas to me. It's absolutely bananas. All right. I'm choking on my own words here. Holy smokes, man. We're going to switch over to Parliament. We're going to see what's going on. We're going to take a little look here because they are in the House. They're doing statements by members right now. So before I switch over, I do want to encourage you guys, hit the like button, folks. We're at like 400 or 500 likes. Let's try and get over 1,000, as close to 1,000 as we possibly can. And subscribe to the channel. It's free to do. It's absolutely free to do so. Now let's take a look at what's going on in the House, shall we? Here we go.
Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, as we enter the holiday season, it's fitting to take a moment to express our gratitude to those who work to make... Oh, sorry, if I may start again. Something in my mouth. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker,
hey, Tomes.
As we enter the holiday season, it's fitting to take a moment to express our gratitude to those who work to make our community a better place. Today, I'd like to extend my heartfelt thanks to all the community organizations in Charles-Bourgault-Saint-Charles for their commitment, generosity, and unfailing dedication. Your actions transform the lives of so many families and individuals. Whether supporting the less fortunate, organizing festive events, or creating spaces for sharing and mutual aid, you are the beating heart of our community. Thanks to you, smiles blossom, bonds are forged, and the holiday spirit shines through. Your work goes beyond just the actions we can see. It warms hearts and shows us the true meaning of solidarity. You are artisans of hope and your impact is priceless. On behalf of all the residents of Charles-Bourgault-Saint-Charles, I say a huge thank you. Let's continue together to make our community a place where no one is forgotten. I wish you all a very Merry Christmas filled with joy, peace, and precious moments with your loved ones.
The honourable member from Brampton Centre.
Mr. Speaker, last week Canada voted yes on the National UN General Assembly resolution entitled Peaceful Settlement of the Question of Palestine. Canada joined 156 other nations calling for Israel's complete withdrawal from the Palestinian territories. The resolution demanded that Israel comply with international law, cease all settlement activities, and evacuate settlers from the occupied Palestinian territory. Canada's vote reaffirmed our long-standing policy in calling for the realization of the rights of the Palestinian people, primarily the right to self-determination and the right to their independent state. Consistent with that policy, and to demonstrate support for the resolution, it is now time for Canada to recognize the state of Palestine.
The Honourable Member for Trois-Rivières. I rise today to pay tribute to Mr. Serge Godon, an exceptional member of our community in Trois-Rivières. Mr. Godon is what I call a super volunteer. He's been involved in numerous community activities in the Mauricie region since the early 1980s. He's been particularly involved with the Astérix Soccer Club in Trois-Rivières, the Sanctuaire de Notre-Dame-du-Cap, the Saint-Louis-de-France and Sainte-Bernadette Scouting Associations, the Roland Leclerc Centre, Les Artisans de la Paix, and the list goes on. But the commitment that impresses me the most is that of Noël Ducoeur, formerly Noël du Pauvre.
AJL with the two U.S.
4 years.
Comparing Trudeau's PP to Trump's PP.
All of whom were introduced to volunteering at a young age, that he continues to
Andrew LePence is the two, not voting Liberal.
Mr. Godon
is like banning guns as people.
More people like you all over Quebec. People who make a difference in people's everyday
and lives. David Tomes, welcome to the membership. I appreciate that, sir.
Exceptional.
Canada first, man. Canada first.
The Honourable Member for Saint-Léonard Saint-Michel.
Speaker, this past weekend, as part of the Canadian delegation to the Vatican City, I had the honor and privilege to attend the induction of His Eminence Frank Cardinal Leo into the College of Cardinals, presided by His Holiness Pope Francis at St. Peter's Basilica. Cardinal Leo is the 18th Canadian to be inducted into the College of Cardinals. Among his many accomplishments and important positions held, I am particularly proud to say that he taught religion at Collège Reine-Marie, located in my riding. A Montreal-born shepherd of Italian descent, he faithfully served the Montreal Catholic community for over a decade before being appointed as Archbishop of Toronto. His elevation to Cardinal is a testament to his years of dedication and leadership in both local and global faith communities. Our delegation, led by the Minister for the Federal Economic Development Agency of Southern Ontario, played a key role in representing Canada, our communities, and all Italian Canadians in this important and historic event. Congratulations, Cardinal Leo.
The honourable member for Leeds Grenville, Thousand Islands and Rideau Lakes.
On Saturday, the Archbishop for Toronto was inducted into the College of Cardinals by Pope Francis at St. Peter's Basilica. I was honoured to attend the consistory with the Canadian delegation on behalf of the leader of the official opposition. Now, witnessing this historic ritual was a deeply spiritual experience and a moment of profound inspiration, hope, and promise. Born in Montreal to immigrant parents, Cardinal Leo was ordained a priest for the Archdiocese of Montreal. He also served in the Holy See's diplomatic service, taught theology and spirituality. Appointed Archbishop of Toronto in 2023, he oversees major ecclesiastical institutions and Catholic organizations. As one of the youngest cardinals, he said the church outreach must start from the heart and the church must be a guide, but listen to what young people are saying. This is a proud moment for Canadians. Congratulations, Cardinal Leo. Viva Cristo Rey.
Let's put some Canada First down in the chat, shall we?
The honourable member for Richmond Hill.
Mr. Speaker, Richmond Hill is making important progress in affordable housing. The Richmond Hill Council recently adopted a community improvement plan for affordable housing and sustainable design, one of the 9 initiatives as part of the $31 million Housing Accelerated Fund agreement that the city has with the federal government. This new program addresses housing affordability and environment sustainability by providing incentives for developers to kickstart affordable rental housing projects with ensuring such housing is designed and operated to reduce greenhouse gas emission over the long term. This underscores how our Housing Accelerated Fund is empowering municipalities like Richmond Hill to meet local housing needs, and I am proud my city is moving forward with key housing initiatives such as this one. Together we are building a Richmond Hill where everyone and every family has a place to call home. Merry Christmas and happy holiday to all. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Mississauga, Erin Mills.
Mr. Speaker, today I rise with a heavy heart to recognize the passing of Umar Zia. He was a loving father, husband, son, and brother. He dedicated his career to service in our community as a teacher in Peel schools, and most recently as principal in the Woodlands Secondary School. Omar was a mentor to so many young people in our community. He was breaking barriers, and he was an unwavering advocate for special education, for anti-racism, volunteerism, and youth. I had the privilege of working with him over the years, and you could see the compassion that he brought every single day to work. Last week,
Nick Clips with the $6.99.
This weekend, we gather to mourn, share stories.
This is probably the funniest super chat I've ever read.
Friend and our brother.
While Canadians can't afford Christmas, Trudeau will spend the holidays stuffing Jagmeet's stocking.
How will you make a positive impact today?
With a little Maserati, little Maserati Hot Wheels.
I also thank honourable members, those who had just encouraged all of them members to lower their voices during these statements, which are important statements to make. The honourable member from Brantford Brant.
Mr. Speaker, after 9 years
Uncle
of
Brock,
the
let's go.
Crime and chaos has taken over our streets and communities. This past Sunday, Alicia Brooks was tragically gunned down by her boyfriend, a known serial abuser. As she was taking her final breath, this monster stood over her dead body and yelled at her. The accused, despite a history of gun possession, breaking and entering, weapon prohibition orders, and assaulting other women, was allowed to live in a halfway house. This devastating loss is yet another glaring example of the NDP Liberal government's failure to protect Canadians by prioritizing criminals over victims. This criminal should have never been free to harm anyone. Canadians are urgently calling for bail reform to allow law enforcement to do their job and protect communities. Yet this Justice Minister ignores these claims and claims reform has already been achieved. How many more lives must be lost before this government finally takes action? Only a Conservative government will keep violent criminals behind bars and bring home safe streets.
The honourable member for Surrey Newton.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. November 29th marked a significant milestone in Surrey's history as Surrey Police Service officially took command from the RCMP. The transition reflects the community's evolving needs for public safety. I extend my congratulations to the Surrey Police Service as they assume this critical responsibility. At the same time, I want to express my deepest gratitude to the RCMP for their dedicated service to the city of Surrey.
Benjamin
Commitment to the safety and
Margulies,
residents.
welcome to the membership. I appreciate that.
And appreciated by all. As we move forward, let us honor the legacy
Stop saying
of the RCMP
subtitles, guys.
while supporting Surrey's journey into a new era of community policing.
Brad C with the 699.
The honourable member for
there's Pierre.
Kawartha Lakes Brock.
Brad C with 699 saying Justin Trudeau is a perfect example of what happens when brothers and sisters bang.
Namely, the member for Edmonton Centre and his involvement with Global Health Imports, a company he co-owned, falsely presented himself as Indigenous-owned in order to exploit government procurement programs designed to benefit Indigenous communities. More troubling is that the Minister of Indigenous Services ignored clear warnings from her own auditors about rampant fraud and abuse. In the typical Ottawa Knows Best fashion, the minister prevented auditors from contacting businesses directly during verification investigations. Instead, they were forced to submit their inquiries to the department, which would then respond to the companies. Despite the weakened audit process, the minister has been forced to remove 1,100 businesses from the Indigenous Business Directory, highlighting the extent to which the Liberals have allowed things to spiral out of control. Canadians have had enough. It's time to allow voters to put an end to this incompetent government.
Dale St. Jean with the 2 saying Jasper for House Speaker. Let's friggin' go. I would be down, but I wouldn't wear that dress.
Mr. Speaker, when you think about it,
I'd be in
resembles
shorts,
at Christmas.
Short shorts,
First Canadians were visited
and sandals
the NDP past.
with a cowboy hat.
Current NDP leader who made such a ruckus and tore up his costly NDP Liberal coalition agreement, declaring the Prime Minister was
And the shorts would be so small that sometimes, depending on the camera angle, you might see a nut, so they'd have to blur it out or ask me to put my nuts back in my shorts. You know what I'm saying? Those types of shorts.
toppling the government. The NDP leader
That's not to be unprofessional. That's just
by standing with
that's just to be comfortable
so much for having the current
and establish dominance in the House.
And we all know the ghost of the NDP future is busy securing his own pension at the expense of all Canadians.
Sometimes my intrusive thoughts just get the best of me. I'm so sorry.
To this NDP Liberal fiscal nightmare, only a carbon tax election and a common sense.
I'm not talking to friends. I'm making a YouTube video.
Better results
My
for
bad.
Canadian workers. And as Tiny Tim observed, God bless us everyone, except perhaps this costly coalition. Merry Christmas, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Ottawa Centre.
Speaker, today on Human Rights Day, I'm pleased to recognize the important work of Scholars at Risk programs at Carleton University, University of Ottawa, and around the country. This is a vital initiative that champions academic freedom, human rights, and the protection of scholars facing threats worldwide. This program provides a safe haven at Canadian universities for hundreds of academics forced to flee their countries due to conflict, censorship, or persecution. Scholars at Risk program exemplifies Canada's commitment to education, equity, and global solidarity. By offering displaced scholars a chance to continue their work in a secure and supportive environment, this program contributes to the exchange of knowledge and ideas that strengthen both our academic institutions and our democracy. We must continue to support initiatives like Scholars at Risk that uphold Canada's values on human rights on the global stage. Thank you.
The honourable member for Vancouver Kingsway.
I rise to honour one of Canada's finest public servants, our ambassador to Germany and former Premier of British Columbia, the late John Horgan. Raised by a single mum, John overcame great challenges to rise to the highest levels of public office. His political career actually started in this place, staffing NDP MPs. In 1991, he left to assume important roles in the BC NDP government, ending as Chief of Staff to the Premier. John entered elected office as an MLA in 2005 and ultimately became leader of the party the official opposition.
Sorry if that caught anyone off guard. I'll do better.
Throughout, John carved a deeply impactful path. He had an uncommon touch. He had that rare ability to rise above partisanship and win the respect of his opponents. He was witty, kind, and positive. In my view, John was the best off-the-cuff speaker in Canadian politics. We extend our deepest condolences to John's beloved Ellie and their 2 sons. John, thank you. Your kind shall not pass this way again.
Yes.
The Honourable Member for Drummond. The Iris Gala, our annual celebration of Quebec cinema, shone a spotlight on our homegrown talent again this year. Gatineau director Ariane Louis-XVI was the night's big winner for her film Humanist Vampire Seeking Consenting Suicidal Person, which is much more than just its brilliant title. This dark comedy saw her win Best Film, Best Debut Film, and Best Screenplay with co-writer Christine Doyon. Monia Chokli won Best Director for The Nature of Love, while Theodore Perrin and Ariane Castellanos were named Performers of the Year. But the highlight of the evening was the tribute to director Denis Villeneuve, who made us so proud of his talent, and it was so moving to see how much he was touched by the honour. The Iris Gala once again reminded us that, per capita, Quebec produces some of the finest filmmakers and artists in the world. And above all, it was a reminder of the importance of maintaining adequate funding for cinema from our public institutions, as this government has promised on numerous occasions. Long live Quebec cinema.
The Honourable Member for Stormont Dundas, South Glengarry.
Canadians now know that all of the NDP's tough talk is worthless. Yesterday, they voted against a non-confidence motion in the Liberals that used the NDP leader's very own words against him. It meant nothing when he said he'd ripped up his coalition deal with the Prime Minister. It meant nothing when he said, quote, the Liberals are too weak, too selfish, and too beholden to corporate interests.
Y'all ready for this? This is going to be a good one, folks.
It meant nothing.
Buckle up, huh? Hit the like button if you haven't yet already.
And told them just
We're almost at 1,000.
Quote, if there's ever any vote in Parliament that in any way impacts your rights, we're going to vote no. Whether that's a confidence vote or not, whether that vote triggers an election or not, I'm telling the Liberals right now, you're never going to count on us if you're going to take away the rights of workers. Well, the NDP did exactly the opposite yesterday, and Canadians know why, because just minutes ago, the Liberals and NDP teamed up to cancel the idea of the election happening before the NDP leader gets his $2.3 million pension. Because here's the deal. The NDP leader gets his pension, the Prime Minister gets power, and Canadians get the bill.
Here we go.
Order, please.
Pierre's got some energy today.
The Honourable Member for Cape Breton-Canso.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. For years, the Conservative leader has lectured Canadians about the virtue of tax cuts. Yet, when our government introduced a GST tax break to help Canadians, what did they do? The Conservatives voted against a tax break. It's like having a doctor who wouldn't accept their own medical advice. The Conservative leader calls himself a champion for affordability, but when the time comes, he turns his back and to give Canadians a real break. So who does the Conservative leader want a tax break for, Mr. Speaker? Well, that would be his rich corporate donors. Time and time again in this House, Mr. Speaker, when it's about supporting Canadians, we hear silly slogans, bumper sticker solutions. On this side of the House, we are absolutely 100% here for Canadians.
Here we go. Here we go. Here we go.
Oral questions.
Cast those on. Leader of the opposition should be next Prime Minister Canada, Pierre Poilievre.
Of the opposition, Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister is weak and he's lost control. He's lost control of our borders, of our freedom, of finances, and he's also lost control of his ministers. Indeed, we have learned that there is a squabble going on between the Minister for Finance, who wants a huge $40 billion deficit, and the Prime Minister, who wants a great deficit, a steroid-infused deficit that goes beyond $40 billion. Who's going to win this squabble, Mr. Speaker?
Look who showed up to work.
Right, Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, when a government delivers dental care to seniors throughout the country, it's the Canadians who win. When the government delivers a tax break for Canadians over the next 2 months, Canadians win. When we are here to invest in food for children in schools, children and parents throughout Canada win. Canadians will not win when the Conservative leader votes against all these measures and refuses to help Canadians and only cares about his own future, not the future of Canadians.
He's Canada first, dumbass.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition. The Minister for Finance does not agree. She promised that deficits would not go beyond $40 billion. She stated that she was against the little Christmas electoral bauble to the tune of $6 billion. But the Prime Minister imposed this inflationist policy upon her. He admits that deficits fuel inflation. And that is the reason for which they have promised to keep deficits to $40 billion. Will he keep his promise? Yes or no? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, the person in this room who is against helping Canadians is the Leader of the Opposition. He's voted against a tax break for Canadians. He voted against dental care, against food in schools, against investments.
He voted against failing programs.
Batteries, against investments that we are creating for clean energy and for more jobs in Canada. The Leader of the Opposition is against measures that actually help Canadians because all he cares about is himself. He doesn't care about Canadians.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
This weak Prime Minister has lost control of the borders, lost control of immigration, lost control of spending, debt and inflation, and now he's lost control of his own cabinet. We've learned in the Globe and Mail today that his finance minister is having her people speak out against him. She wants a large deficit of $40 billion. He, on the other hand, wants an even larger deficit on steroids, bigger than $40 billion. We know that Canadians are going to lose from all this inflation, but which one of those two is going to win?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians lose when the Conservative leader votes against a dental plan for seniors. Canadians lose when he stands against a tax break for all Canadians over the next few months. Canadians lose when he blocks a school food program that's going to save parents $800 on groceries while putting more food in kids' bellies. Every single time the Leader of the Opposition gets up in this House, he stands against supports for Canadians, against growing the economy, against supporting a better future for all Canadians, because he's only in it for himself.
That's right.
He's literally Canada first.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Well, it's not clear that the finance minister is actually in it with him. She said, according to the Globe and Mail, the Prime Minister's office has given internal direction for an aggressive and possibly costly policy agenda that threatens to blow past spending targets she has already publicly stated for the government. She promised the deficit would be capped at $40 billion, acknowledging that if it went over, it would cause even more inflation. That means hungry Canadians lined up at food banks. So once again, will the government meet the minister's promise to keep the deficit under $40 billion?
Yes or no? The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, while we once again hear the Leader of the Opposition talking down Canada's economy, talking down Canadians, the Bank of Canada, it looks like it's going to be decreasing interest rates once again because inflation is back down within the target range. Mr. Speaker, the Leader of the Opposition is also perplexed because he doesn't let his own MPs speak out on anything that he doesn't stamp and approve. He has people follow them around with tape recorders so that they don't speak to media about anything that he doesn't pre-approve. That's not being Canadians' voices in this place, Mr. Speaker.
No, he doesn't.
You were doing so very well for the first number of questions in terms of members respecting that only one of their colleagues at a time had the floor. I'll ask members to please withhold their comments and let the one member speak and the one member answer. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, this Prime Minister has admitted that deficits drive inflation. His minister admitted the same thing. That's why she said the deficit would not go above $40 billion. That was her guardrail. They weren't going to smash into that guardrail. She's like a bus driver saying she's going to come just short of hitting that $40 billion guardrail. And then some crazy lunatic comes in, grabs the steering wheel, and jerks it sharp to the left through the guardrail. Does he realize there's 41 million Canadians that are going to go off the cliff in that bus?
Wow. Great analogy.
Order. Order. Colleagues, the longer I take to get order in this place, the shorter question period in terms of the number of questions we'll have to ask. I ask for members, please, exercise discipline. The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, while the Leader of the Opposition continues to talk down Canadians and the Canadian economy and indeed Canada, let me once again put it on the record. Canada is the best country in the world. And
It used to be.
Canadians are stepping up, got us through the pandemic. Canadians got us through the challenge of high inflation. Canadians will keep building a positive future for themselves by being there and showing up for each other. Unlike the Leader of the Opposition, who's voted against every measure that has been put on the table to support Canadians over the past years and continues to be in it only for himself.
Greg is trying to take away more questions.
The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly, Mr. Speaker. In the context of bullying and religious practices in schools, where people are asked to move to leave space for prayer, the Minister for Immigration says that the Premier of Quebec is always attacking Muslims. He keeps talking about the freedom of expression, but he seems to find it difficult to tell the difference between Notre Dame in Paris and a park in Montreal. What does the Prime Minister have to say about this? Is he for or against this kind of statement? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, on this side of the House, we will always defend individual rights and freedoms and the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, the right to believe and to express oneself is something that our government will always defend. Of course, we will continue to protect these rights throughout our country. The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. For a bit more details, it's not a question of secularism versus one religion, but versus all religions. The vast majority of Muslims in Quebec are perfectly happy, integrated, and of course welcome in Quebec. The secularism of state institutions is there and is necessary for equality for all. Can the Prime Minister at least ask his minister to wait to see what the government of Quebec will do before he starts self-immolating in indignation? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, Quebec is like all Canadians, cherish individual rights and freedoms, the freedom of expression, the freedom of belief and credence, the right and freedom to assemble. We have fundamental rights and freedoms that we will always defend. I understand that sometimes a community may be attacked, as we see sometimes with politics and policies throughout the country, but here the Liberal federal government will always defend individual freedoms.
Except of those of Canadians.
Honourable Member from Burnaby South.
Mr. Speaker, get this.
Boo.
The Conservatives bring in a tax cut for the richest CEOs corporations, costing Canadians
Is he hiding his Rolex again?
$60 billion, but they vote against taking the GST off of home heating and diapers. and the Prime Minister sided with them. Why does the Prime Minister side with the Conservatives and big corporations against working people?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, we were equally puzzled when the Conservatives voted against a tax break for Canadians for the next few months. People are facing challenges right now, counting their pennies at the grocery store as they try to make ends meet. This Parliament stepped up to deliver a tax break for all Canadians, but the Conservative leader forced his MPs to vote against a tax break for Canadians. So even though he wanders around the country talking about taxes, hanging out with certain questionable diagolon folks, he continues.
Whoa, there he goes again.
The interests of Canadians.
Order, please. Order. The Honourable Member for Burnaby South.
Dead.
Mr. Speaker, make it make sense. The healthcare system is collapsing and the Prime Minister is sitting on his hands.
Oh, we didn't hear what he said at first because of the muting during the translation.
I can't quite hear what the Honourable Member is currently saying. Order, please. I ask the Honourable Member for Burnaby South to start his question again.
Prime Minister's excuses instead.
Make it make sense, Mr. Speaker. The healthcare system is collapsing and the Prime Minister is sitting on his hands. Currently, 7 times out of 10, François Legault encourages Quebecers to pay for their healthcare. Does the Prime Minister find this acceptable? If so, why? And why is he abandoning people? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, we will always respect provincial jurisdictions. We have also invested $200 million. We will invest $200 billion over the next years in healthcare throughout the country to deliver a greater number of general physicians with stronger healthcare, better mental healthcare, and better support for our workers. We are working for the healthcare system. We are here to defend our public healthcare system, and we are here to work hand in hand with provinces who want to deliver for better healthcare for all.
Here we go, Lanceman.
We know the Prime Minister has lost control of spending, and now we see he's lost control of his own minister. We have a finance minister who won't tell us what the deficit is, and a Prime Minister who doesn't think about monetary policy, and that seems like a match made in heaven. But then again, maybe not. The Globe and Mail reports that, quote, tensions have risen between the Prime Minister's office and the Finance Minister's department, saying that the current dynamic appears to be similar to what happened with Bill Morneau before he quit. The Prime Minister bullies females, and he bullies finance ministers, and now he's bullying a female finance minister. How much longer is she going to put up with that?
Alors, s'il vous plaît.
Order, please.
Members to take their seats. The Honourable Member from Lakeland, I'll ask her, please, to not take the floor unless recognized. The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker.
On this side of the House, we are united in working
That's the Conservatives pissing themselves off. Literally anything but united. There's a literal rebel caucus within the Liberals. What a joke. Are they trying to fool us? You think we're dumb?
The chair has
Shut the hell up.
Stood up for longer than a minute, which would be one question. I'm going to ask members to themselves. The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister and the Minister of Finance from the top, please.
Mr. On this side of the House, we are united in working hard for Canada and Canadians. And in fact, Mr. Speaker, the only would-be bullies in this House are directly opposite. But I am very comfortable standing up to them. I look forward, together with my colleagues, to tabling the Fall Economic Statement on Monday in this House. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Order. Order.
It's almost 2025 and she's now doing the fall economic update. Like, that's so funny.
Here to experience that. The honourable member. The honourable member for Thornhill.
So awkward. I don't know why the finance minister takes all of this abuse from the prime minister. She told Canadians that the deficit wouldn't go past $40 billion. That was her own self-imposed guardrail. Now she says everything's fine as her political career collapses, and so does her credibility, all because of this prime minister. 5 senior Liberal veterans and 3 political staffers confirmed to the Globe that the tensions have risen between her office and the PMO over spending. These are the same people who last summer said that she couldn't communicate. We know what the Prime Minister thinks of her, but why does she still have confidence in him?
Yeah! Wow. There you go. Little squeakers standing up.
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker.
Speaker, on this side of the House, we are united. And on this side of the House, we recognize what a privilege it is every single day to work hard for Canada and Canadians and to defend the national interest. That is what we are focused on every single day. And I would urge the MPs opposite to remember, this is a challenging time in Canada and the world. It is not a time for cheap partisan games.
She actually believes her own crap.
It's the finance minister who said over and over again that she would not go over her self-imposed guardrail of a $40 billion deficit. Now the parliamentary budget officer says that's yet another broken Liberal promise. We have no idea who's in the driver's seat anymore. Driving Canadians through that $40 billion guardrail off of a cliff as they pay more in inflationary spending on the backs of struggling Canadians. What we do know is that Canadians ought to take her driver's license away. I can give her another opportunity to prove that she can communicate. She can stand up here and tell us what the deficit is at the moment.
There you go. Why wait till Monday? Just give us a number.
Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, I look forward to tabling the Fall Economic Statement in this House on Monday. And in the Fall Economic Statement, we will show that the government is maintaining its fiscal anchor, specifically reducing the federal debt as a share of the economy over the medium term. In addition, I expect the debt to GDP ratio we projected in the spring budget for fiscal year 23-24 will be met. Canada has the lowest debt to GDP ratio in the G7, the lowest deficit in the G7. This is good news for Canadians.
Why can't you just give us a number right now?
The Honourable Member for Bellechasse-les-Etchemins-Lévis. Unable to table a single balanced budget in 9 years, unable to keep the promise to keep the deficit under 40 billion, the Finance Minister is above all unable to convince her leader to abandon inflationary spending. There are major tensions between these two, according to the Globe and Mail. The Prime Minister is losing control of public finances, borders, his caucus, and even his cabinet. Can he do any good and at least tell us how much the deficit exceeds the announced $40 billion?
Yeah, it's like upwards of 60.
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister and Minister for Finance. Mr. Speaker, I will be tabling the Fall Economic Statement next Monday in this very House. And in this economic statement, we show that the government maintains its budgetary anchor. More specifically, reducing federal the federal debt on average in the economy. I expect the debt-GDP ratio that we've forecasted to be respected for 2023-2024. The Honourable Member for Bellechasse-Lévis. Mr. Speaker, the Minister of Finance waits until the eve of the end of the parliamentary session to table her economic update. We've seen more courageous people in this House because bad news awaits.
With less than 24 hours before they take off for the holidays.
Increase spending and that his finance minister is failing to make him see reason. The Parliamentary Budget Officer has said it. The deficit will be much higher than the $40 billion announced. How big is the deficit? The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister and Minister for Finance. Mr. Speaker, I am over the moon that the member across the way quoted the Parliamentary Budget Officer, because it's he and his analysis that concluded, and I quote, that the current budgetary policy is viable and sustainable in the long term. That's what the PBO said, straight from the PBO's mouth, which is objective. That's the truth of the matter, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Member for Bellechasse-Lévis. Well, the truth is that there's disorder in public finances, tension at the borders, discord in cabinet, dissatisfaction within his caucus. Canadians are tired of this worn-out, inefficient and spendthrift government. Even his finance minister no longer gets along with him, according to the Globe and Mail.
Wow.
To ask the real question. There's enough to do work. How high and how big is the deficit?
It's a simple question. I don't know why they're waiting till the last minute to submit their project. Like, it's so ridiculous.
Mr. Speaker, I will be tabling the economic statement next Monday here in this very chamber. And in this full economic statement, we show that the government will maintain its budgetary anchor. It will reduce its federal debt level in the economy in the medium term. The debt-GDP ratio that we forecasted for 23-24 will be maintained. The Honourable Member for Lac-Saint-Jean. 3 Chilean asylum seekers escaped from the Laval Immigration Holding Centre. These are people who are linked to international organised crime and are subject to removal orders. These 3 escapees join a long list of nearly 750 asylum seekers in Quebec who are inadmissible for security reasons, but whom the federal government is not deporting. We're talking about people who are putting the public at risk. How can the government justify such huge loopholes in the monitoring and deportation of asylum seekers with criminal pasts? The Honourable Minister for Public Safety. Mr. Speaker, of course we share the concerns of our colleague when it comes to the circumstances of what happened at the Laval Immigration Holding Centre. I've asked the CBSA to immediately examine and revisit the security measures in this holding centre. We tripled the number of guards. We changed protocol with regards to the access of certain people to certain parts of the holding centre, and we will continue to make sure that this situation will not happen again. The Honourable Member for Avignon-la-Métis, Matane-Matapédia. The 750 nationals with criminal past that the federal government is unable to deport from Quebec are just the tip of the iceberg, Mr. Speaker. In 2020, the Auditor General denounced the CBSA's failure to investigate the whereabouts of people who were supposed to be deported. I quote Ms. Horgan.
Never mind that. CBSA doesn't even check the rail coming into Canada.
4% of cases involving failed asylum seekers had not been reviewed every 3 years as they should have been. Mr. Speaker, clearly, the agency is unable to act. Is it because of a lack of resources or a lack of political will? The Honourable Minister for Public Safety. Mr. Speaker, it will come to no one's surprise. It's not one or the other. It's a circumstance that many other countries have seen in the world with an increase of asylum seekers. However, we do accept the responsibility under our statutes. We must make sure that certain people who are a threat for Canada's public safety, make sure that they are detained before they are sent out of Canada. And that is exactly the kind of investments that we're doing now, and we'll continue to guarantee the safety of everyone.
And not ready for you to talk. Oh, is that a heckler up in the gallery? Yeah, it is. There's a heckler up in the gallery. Everybody's looking up in the gallery. Oh, somebody go back and let us know what they said. Hopelessness and something. That's all I heard. There we go. So whatever's being said, only those that are in the gallery and in Parliament can hear. None of us can hear it, though. Yeah. Oh, Andrew Scheer is going to check it out. Pierre's confused. Trudeau's annoyed.
The Honourable Member for Avignon-la-Métis, Metapedia. The question of political will is still valid. The Globe and Mail reported last winter that since 2016, so barely a month after the new Liberal government came into power, 14,609 people had been issued deportation notices. Of these, 9,317 were still in Canada in May of 2023. Imagine, during almost the entire Liberal reign, 64% of inadmissible people were never even deported. At this point, deportations of people with a criminal past are virtually voluntary, it seems. Why would defying a deportation notice, even for years, be of no consequence under the Liberals? The Honourable Minister for Public Safety. Mr. Speaker, our colleague knows full well that deporting people without a legal status in Canada and who have violated criminal law is a significant responsibility that we accept.
Oh, the heckler said homelessness is a crisis. We have to work with our police bodies,
our law and order bodies. We are also working with our partners in a number of provinces to make sure that we can detain people who are a real threat for public safety with a view of expelling them from Canada. And I trust that we'll be able to continue this work.
The Honourable Member for Calgary Forest Lawn.
The spending spree spat between the Finance Minister and the Prime Minister has spilled into the public, according to the Globe and Mail.
Ooh.
Confirmed, the Prime Minister forced this Finance Minister to blow through her $40 billion fiscal guardrail promise, taking Canada's finances off a cliff. And now he wants her to bury the bad news of their deficits in the dark days of December next Monday. How bad is the deficit?
How bad that they wait to the last day, the last hour.
Mr. and Minister of Finance, I'll ask the Honourable Member to please take his seat. The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, I was actually about to ask, are they giving out Christmas presents for alliteration? I mean, we're supposed to be talking about serious issues here. I am, though, glad that the member opposite has spoken about the Parliamentary Budget Officer, because just a few weeks ago, in his independent analysis, the Parliamentary Budget Officer concluded, and I quote, "Current fiscal policy in Canada is sustainable over the long term." That's the conclusion of the PBO that was just cited by the member opposite, and it's good news for Canadians.
The Honourable Member for Calgary Forest Lawn.
Well, Canadians can't have Christmas because she can't do math. And the Prime Minister controls Canada's finances and forced this Finance Minister to cover their devastating deficit. The spending tensions between her and the Prime Minister will have her getting the bill no more treatment. And Canadians have to foot the bill for the spending spree separation. We know she already blew through her $40 billion fiscal guardrail promise. But what is the deficit number?
Yeah!
Look at Pierre stands up and faces Trudeau in the eyes between questions.
Mr. Speaker, I do really look forward to tabling the
What's he thinking about? Look at him.
in this House on Monday. And in the fall economic statement on Monday, we will show that the government is maintaining its
He's out to lunch. He's a space cadet.
specifically reducing the federal debt as a share of the economy over the medium term. In addition, I expect the debt to GDP ratio we projected in the spring budget for fiscal year 23-24 will be met. Canada has the lowest debt to GDP ratio in the G7. We have the lowest deficit, and this is good news for Canada and Canadians.
The Honourable Member for Mégantic-L'Érable. After 9 years of this Prime Minister, supported by the Bloc, the Liberal government is in full meltdown. The Prime Minister and his Finance Minister are at loggerheads and both have lost control of the country's public finances. The Finance Minister has made a promise. The Liberal government's deficit will not exceed $40 billion. The Prime Minister couldn't care less about the consequences for Canadian families. A simple question. While he's still here, what is the deficit? Who won? The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister and Minister for Finance. Mr. Speaker, Canadians will win. Why? Because our government is united. Our government is working all together to deliver the goods for Canadians. With dental care, with early childcare, with medicine for Canadians. We are here for Canadians, and we are proud to be here for them, and we do it as a team.
The Honourable Member, Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister doesn't even seem to want to listen to what the Minister of Finance has to say. There's infighting on the other side of the House. The Globe and Mail has said that 5 Liberal Party veterans and 3 political staffers have confirmed that tensions are growing between the Minister of Finance's office and the PMO. We know that the Minister of Finance really wants to keep things at her already high level of $40 billion for the deficit, but the Prime Minister wants to go to an even more shocking level. Will the Minister of Finance keep her word and state that finally she's sticking to the $40 billion deficit? What is the deficit? The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance. Mr. Speaker, I will be tabling the fall economic statement on Monday in this very House. And in the fall economic statement next week, we will show that this government is maintaining its budget anchors. It's all about reducing the proportion of the federal debt in the economy over the medium term. And the debt to GDP ratio that we stated in the spring budget will be respected. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Port Moody Coquitlam.
Pierre's wearing AirPods.
Canadians are hurting, and we saw it expressed in the gallery today. Renters in Canada are facing exploitation.
Wow!
Because of corporate.
Somebody heckled today saying you need to recognize homelessness as a crisis, and she's weaponizing that. Like, I get that that's a good point.
Hearing the question.
But wow, talk about being an opportunistic individual.
It's not for the chair to agree or disagree with the content of the question, but to making sure that it does follow the rules. I'm asking members to please restrain themselves. The Honourable Member from Port Moody Coquitlam from the top, please.
Canadians are hurting, and we saw it expressed in the gallery today. Renters in Canada are facing exploitation and eviction because of corporate greed.
Yeah, I don't think you're allowed to talk about that, man. Leave it to the NDP to do that. It wasn't the Conservatives. It wasn't the Liberals. It was the freaking greasy NDP. What a joke. And I don't actually think that you're legally allowed to recognize things that have been said, like heckling. because it's not official.
I invite the honourable member to rephrase her question. I just want to remind the member that we should not make reference to what has or has not happened in the galleries.
Boom!
To ensure that Canadians...
See, I could be House Speaker.
Ensure that this behaviour is not...
I could be the House Speaker. Come on, I know the rules.
The honourable member from Port Moody, Coquitlam.
Canadians are hurting, and we saw it expressed in the gallery today.
That's right. We've seen it.
You can't do that. Kick her out, remove her questions, and threaten to cut off her pinky.
Again.
Off her hand and toe. Maybe that's too much. Don't remove a question.
Order. And I hope the honourable member can understand and can hear my voice when I do say that we should not make reference to what has happened in the gallery or not happened in the gallery. And I'll invite the honourable member to rephrase her question for the last time before I move on.
Canadians are hurting, and we saw in Ottawa today that it was expressed around homelessness.
Yes, that's right.
Canada are facing exploitation and eviction because of corporate greed.
I'm sorry.
Bad, a class action lawsuit has started against corporate landlords, accusing them of price fixing using the AI program YieldStar. For months, New Democrats have called on the Liberals to protect renters. But the Liberals and Conservatives chose to protect corporate profits over people. Why is the Prime Minister letting down renters and caving to corporate landlord CEOs?
The Honourable Minister for Housing, Infrastructure and Communities.
Mr. Speaker, no one in this country is choosing to be homeless. No one is choosing to live in an encampment. We know that the cost of housing has gotten too high. That's why we are putting billions of dollars of investments on the table to help build out more affordable housing, to help community entities actually provide services to people who do not have a roof over their head. What's fascinating, Mr. Speaker, is the Conservatives seek to make a joke out of a very serious issue such as homelessness. We're going to be willing to do hard work to build more homes, including the most vulnerable. And as the jeering continues, Canadians should be ashamed of the behavior of the Conservative Party.
You should be ashamed of the NDP, you tall noodle.
The honourable member for Skeena Bulkley Valley. Member from Skeena Bulkley Valley.
What was with that reaction?
In January, Air Canada will become the latest big airline to charge junk fees for basic services like checked baggage. And the minister's reaction to this? She's taking a page from the industry minister's playbook and going to sit down with the CEOs and ask very nicely if they would please change their ways. It didn't work for grocery prices, and it's not going to work for these airlines' junk fees. It turns out the minister has the regulatory powers she needs to stand up for Canadians that are tired of being gouged. Will she use it?
Hear, hear!
The Honourable President of the Treasury Board and Minister of Transport.
Mr. Speaker, the honourable member opposite actually has it inaccurate. If I could clarify, we are extremely concerned with airlines putting forward junk fees, and the Minister of Finance has specified this in successive budgets. I will be speaking with the airline executives. I will be calling them out for charging these extra fees. Canadians want excellent service, not excellent fees, and our government will be standing for passengers and Canadians every step of the way.
The Honourable Member for Davenport.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians received great news last week about a temporary tax break we are implementing for all Canadians. Our government is exempting essentials like groceries, snacks, children's clothing, and gifts from the GST starting December 14. This will deliver tangible and immediate support to Canadians struggling with the cost of living. Can the minister share why all members of this House should support this tax break?
Judy. The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to thank my neighbour, the Honourable Member for Davenport, for that great question and for her very hard work on behalf of her constituents. It's expensive to raise a family, especially around the holidays, so our government is stepping up to support Canadians by giving them a tax break. This includes children's clothing, diapers, and car seats. And with the holidays coming up, we're also making children's toys, puzzles, books, and board games tax-free. For a party that claims to want to lower taxes, the Conservatives sure seem keen on taxing Canadians' holidays. Why won't the Conservatives support them?
The Honourable Member for Wellington Halton Hills.
Mr. Speaker, the Finance Minister said that the government would not crash through the deficit guardrail. The Globe reports today that all the Prime Minister's new spending is upending the deficit target and that finance officials view it as unwise and making little sense. Tonight, we vote on $24.8 billion in new spending. So will the Finance Minister tell us why we should vote for something that upends the deficit target, that is unwise, and that makes little sense?
Yeah. There you go. Man, he's got a good head on his shoulders. Good common sense.
Prime Minister and Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, I do look forward to tabling the fall economic statement in this House on Monday. And in next week's fall economic statement, we will show that the government is maintaining its fiscal anchor, specifically reducing the federal debt as a share of the economy over the medium term. In addition, I expect that the debt to GDP ratio we projected in the spring budget for fiscal year 23-24 will be met. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Oh my God, her gaslighting, man, is so brutal.
Member for Wellington Halton Hills.
Mr. Speaker, the Globe also reports that the Finance Minister and the Prime Minister are at odds over all this new spending. It reports that the Prime Minister's office has viewed the Finance Minister as ineffective in communicating, and also stated that a senior Liberal said that the current dynamic appears to be similar to what happened to Bill Morneau before he resigned in 2020. John Turner resigned as Finance Minister in 1975 when he was at odds with the Prime Minister. Simple question. Does the Finance Minister still have confidence in the Prime Minister?
The Honourable...
Oh, the Conservatives are having a grand old time.
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance.
Yes.
He's so proud and so brave.
Order.
Give the fall economic statement then.
Member for Peterborough Kawartha.
According to the Globe and Mail, the Finance Minister herself said the radical Liberal spending risks blowing past her promised fiscal guardrails. So she has a choice. She can break rank and join the Liberal minister graveyard, like the former Finance Minister Bill Morneau, or she can abide by this weak Prime Minister and drive Canadians off of a fiscal cliff. Which one?
Order. The Honourable Leader of the Government in the House of Commons.
Mr. Speaker, what we are seeing from the Conservatives is an attempt to distract from the fact that when they have an opportunity to support a tax reduction for Canadians, they actually voted against it, Mr. Speaker. They talk out of one side of their mouth and do the absolute opposite all of the time, Mr. Speaker. On this side of the House, we are absolutely united in our support for Canadians. And over the holidays, we are proud to offer them a GST holiday to make sure that they can have toys and clothing and car seats and diapers at a reduced price for their children, and that's what matters to us. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I'm going to ask the Honourable Member for Barrie Innisfil, please, to not take the floor. The Honourable Member for Peterborough Kawartha.
Mr. Speaker, you can't spend your way out of debt. The fact that the Conservatives have to say that to the finance minister speaks volumes to why we have record high usage of food banks in this country. She has a choice today, and everyone knows there's tension. She promised a guardrail of $40 billion, which in itself is outrageous. Bill Morneau, the former finance minister, was in the same position, and he wouldn't abide by that weak prime minister, and he quit. The question is, will she have the courage to do the same and stand up for Canadians, not that prime minister?
The Honourable Leader of the Government in the House of Commons.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the only people who are engaging in bullying tactics in the House are the members of the Conservative Party of Canada. Mr. Speaker, if they truly cared about supporting Canadians through these tough times, they would have voted in favour of the GST tax break over the holidays. But this is par for the course with those members opposite. They cry crocodile tears, but whenever it comes to helping Canadians, they oppose them. Whether it's the school food program that is already going to be supporting 200,000 kids across this country, the Canada Child Benefit that puts up to over $7,000 a year in the pockets of Canadian families, they oppose it. Mr. Speaker, we are united in our support for Canadians, and we will continue to stand up against those.
Oh, God. You're the worst.
The Honourable Member for Saint-Hyacinthe-Bagotte. Mr. Speaker, we've had the ArriveCan fiasco, but now we have the fiasco at the CBSA. This was a customs clearance application, and it broke down 22 times in the first 30 days of its use. It completely paralyzed imports and was a total failure, despite the fact that it cost 50% more than planned. With inconclusive tests and hidden documentation, the Trade Committee has unanimously, including the Liberals on the committee, asked the AG to look into this. Will the minister listen to his own colleagues and agree to the AG investigation? The Honourable Minister of Public Safety. Mr. Speaker, I don't want to correct my colleague, but when he says that the committee adopted a motion unanimously, we would have thought that would include our Liberal colleagues, which confirms the fact that we want parliamentary committees to stand up and respect the independence of the Auditor General as well. If she decides to look into this, of course the government will be happy to look into it. We expect the AG to do excellent work, as she always does. The Honourable Member. Well, yesterday when the Minister answered, he praised our border agents for their hard work, and we also agree that they should be praised for that, but we're not so sure about their bosses and their offices. The CBSA was already under the spotlight with ArriveCan, but today the problem is the CARM application, with all of its various budget and functioning problems. Because ArriveCan at least worked, CARM doesn't even work, and if it takes Ottawa as long to fix this as it took to fix the Phoenix pay system, our businesses will have hell to pay. Will the minister do something about this?
L'honorable ministre de Sécurité publique.
The Honourable Minister of Public Safety. Mr. Speaker, we are always looking for solutions. As my colleague very well knows, this system replaced an outdated 36-year-old system, which might have broken down at any moment on a broad scale. It is used to evaluate $40 billion in taxes and tariffs every year. This government is always looking to secure a system that is so important for the Canadian economy. We quickly deal with all problems in order to give importers quick answers, and we will continue to do so.
The Honourable Member for Lambton Kent Middlesex.
Speaker, the NDP Liberal government recklessly pushed through their costly temporary GST tax trick that's going to hurt our small businesses, and they're trying to buy votes with a $250 check. But the finance minister's own department called this over $6 billion spend, quote, fiscally unwise, and described it as making no fiscal economic sense. Because of spending like this, we know that the finance minister is going to blow through her $40.1 billion fiscal guardrail. So will she confirm that her deficit won't be a penny over $46 billion?
The Honourable Minister for Small and Medium-Sized Enterprises.
Mr. Speaker, this is coming from a member whose leader calls our government supports big fat government spending. When it's time to step up, the Conservative Party never steps up to support small businesses. We have cut taxes for small businesses from 11% to 9%, saving small businesses $6.3 billion every single year. We have putting more money back into the pockets of small businesses through our Canada Carbon Rebate. That's $2.5 billion going out to 600,000 small businesses across the country. We will always be there to support them, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Lambton, Kent, Middlesex.
Well, Mr. Speaker, you know Canada is about to be sent over a fiscal cliff when the Liberals can't even do basic math. Mr. Speaker, that's why tensions are rising in the Liberal caucus. The Finance Minister is as unfit to lead as her boss. Maybe that's why the Prime Minister is making unilateral financial decisions. So will the Finance Minister continue to go blindly and continue to put Canada decimate our economy, or will she actually show some leadership and stick to her $40 billion fiscal guardrail?
Hear, hear. The Honourable Leader of
$60 billion
in the House of Commons.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, again, on this side of the House, we are putting Canadians first.
That's right.
That is what we have done for the last 9 years in understanding when times are tough, we are there for Canadians. Mr. Speaker, what we hear from Conservative members of Parliament is that when times are tough, they look to take supports away from Canadians, not to be there for them. We will not allow that to happen, Mr. Speaker. We're going to continue to be there for Canadians every step of the way. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
We're so proud of you.
The Honourable Member for Charlebourg-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, according to the Globe and Mail, there is more and more tension between the Prime Minister and the Minister of Finance about ideas like this electioneering vote-buying effort to reduce or to remove the GST over the holidays. And even federal public servants or their own staffers are saying that this $6 billion cost is fiscally imprudent. We know that the Prime Minister has completely lost control over the finances. Does the Minister understand that she needs to say stop to this Prime Minister's crazed requests? The Honourable Minister of Public Services and Procurement. Well, as we've heard from the Minister of Finance on several occasions, this is a matter of fiscal accountability. Because here in Canada, we have the best fiscal record of any country in the G7, including the debt to GDP ratio, the deficit to GDP ratio, as well as debt interest costs. Interest rates are going down. Inflation is going down. Employment is going up. What's really irresponsible is to do as the Conservatives are doing. They keep repeating that it's hard for Canadians to get by right now, but they're actually trying to make their lives even harder.
The Honourable Member for Fleetwood Port Kells.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Our government made a great announcement to support Canadians over this holiday season because the holidays should be a stress-free period for Canadians. However, we're going to...
Whoa.
Order. But this is a good time to remind all members to be very careful about objects that they put on their microphones.
Yeah, man, what the hell?
Ears, which are the tools of our interpreters. The Honourable Member from Fleetwood Port Kells from the top.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This isn't standing right there, Anyway, government did make that great announcement to support Canadians over the holiday season. Holidays should be a stress-free period for all Canadians, but for some, this isn't the case, as spending can be a source of difficulty for some families. So we have a plan for that, but that would be the plan that the Conservatives voted against. Could the Minister share more details about our government's plan to put more money in the pockets of Canadians?
The Honourable Minister for Mental Health and Addictions.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to thank the member for his question and also for the hard work that he does on behalf of his constituents and Canadians. We will always be there for Canadians, Mr. Speaker, for families and businesses in good times and in the hard times. Twice we've offered tax cuts to the middle class, and twice the Conservative leader has voted against them. Today, with the GST cut, we're providing even greater support for families and businesses.
Damn, dude, her eyebrows are like drawn on.
The slogans and the childish shouting, this would be a no-brainer for the Conservatives, but they voted against this tax cut. They vote against Canadians. We are here for them. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member from South Shore St. Margaret's.
The Globe and Mail is reporting a big fight between the Prime Minister and the Minister of Finance. They have blown through every deficit target every year, but apparently we ain't seen nothing yet. Just like what happened to the last Finance Minister, the Prime Minister does not care about this Finance Minister breaking her promise that the deficit would not be more than $40 billion. But hey, who cares when the Prime Minister fears for his political life? Simple question. Is the deficit more than $40 billion? Yes or no?
Good question. Come on, Rick. We both know it's like $60 billion.
Order. The honourable member, the honourable minister and leader of the government in the House of Commons.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, again, what we see from Conservative members of Parliament is their attempt to distract from the fact that when given the opportunity to vote for a tax break for Canadians, they voted against it. They're traveling across the country saying that they're going to cut taxes, but at the very first opportunity to do that, they say no. And Mr. Speaker, this is actually a pattern of behavior because over the past 9 years, when we have brought forward other tax cuts for the middle class or benefits for Canadians, what do, Mr. Speaker? They vote against them. On this side of the House, we're going to stay focused on Canadians and delivering for them in their time of need. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Good job.
For St. Margaret's.
Well, there you have it, a real-life Thelma and Louise. The Prime Minister driving Canadians through the Finance Minister's deficit into the abyss. The Prime Minister is throwing the Finance Minister under the bus. And now, in the Globe and Mail, senior Liberals are throwing the Prime Minister's vote buying under the bus. It truly is hard to imagine a deficit number so bad that even senior Liberals are complaining. So what's the deficit number that is so large that even leaking Liberals are appalled?
Dude, Freeland's talking about what she's ate for lunch. She's not even focusing.
The Honourable Minister of Justice and Attorney General.
Mr. Speaker, I've been listening patiently during this entire question period, and I've heard a lot of attacks of the Minister of Finance. I'll tell you why we support that incredible female leader. Because what does she do? She empowers women around this country. How does she do that? She puts in place programs like a Canada Child Care program.
Get out of your bathtub? All the women are standing up. And Mary Ng, who's accused of Chinese foreign interference.
The Speaker stood up because the honourable member from Peterborough-Kawartha was... I'm going to ask the honourable member from Peterborough-Kawartha, please, to withhold herself while we listen to the honourable minister. The honourable minister... The Honourable Minister of Justice and Attorney General, start from the top.
Mr. Speaker, I've been listening patiently for all of question period about attacks of the current finance minister. I'm going to tell you what a strong female leader looks like. A strong female finance minister empowers women to participate in our economy. How do you do that? You put in place and have the courage to put in place something like a Canada Child Care program that is resulting
It doesn't even work, dude.
85% women's labour force participation rate in this country. That is an all-time high. That is what a feminist looks like. That is what a great woman leader looks like. That is what a great finance minister looks like. And that's somebody we will stand behind every single day in this chamber.
All the liberal feminists are standing up.
Order.
The Revengers.
The Honourable Member for Charleswood St. James, Assiniboia Headingley.
The Globe and Mail has reported that tensions are on the rise, that this weak Prime Minister is forcing the Minister of Finance to spend even more. The Minister promised Canadians, out of her own mouth, the deficit would not exceed $40 billion. Now it's clear she's crashed right through that guardrail. Canadians deserve to know how much the deficit is. Don't make them wait until Monday. Tell us the number now.
Yeah, way to go!
Once again, I'll just remind all members to point the question through the chair. Order, please.
She absolutely
Order, please.
Should be forced to say the number
The
now.
Honourable Leader of the Government in the House of Commons.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, that member knows very well that we are bringing forward the fall economic statement next Monday, and we are very much looking forward to the Finance Minister presenting that to this House. And we are exceptionally proud of the record of this government, of which the Finance Minister has been an incredible leader in, Mr. Speaker, whether it comes to the Canada Child Benefit, childcare for Canadians, a national school food program, supporting Canadians and businesses through the worst pandemic in our lives, Mr. Speaker. She was at the helm of that, led us through those difficult times, and we know that together we will continue to support Canadians and lead them through these tough times.
Shut up, man. What a crock.
The honourable member for the Northwest Territories.
Mr. Speaker, last week the Minister of Foreign Affairs announced a new Arctic foreign policy. It reflects the reality of our region and it was developed in partnership with Indigenous governments as well as Arctic and territorial partners. It strengthens our work here at home and our engagement with other nations, northern nations like Denmark, Finland, Iceland, Norway, Sweden, and the United States. They are Canada's like-minded Arctic partners and are all apparently countries that Conservatives have never heard of. For Northerners and Indigenous people who call the Arctic home to all Canadians, can the Minister tell us why she launched the foreign...
The Honourable Minister for Foreign Affairs.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Allow me to thank the MP for the Northwest Territory. As the world is getting tougher, we need to get tougher. Yes, this Arctic foreign policy builds
What the fuck is she wearing?
in our defense in generations, more than the Conservatives ever did. It puts people first, allowing Indigenous peoples, particularly Inuit and Northerners, to be at the center of international relations affecting them. Russia and China are working together against our interest in the Arctic. This
She's like the Zelensky
seriously, contrary to the leaders
of Canada.
That is not serious about defending our North and trivializing Northerners.
She's LARPing, man. She thinks that she's wearing like World War II fatigues or something. I don't get it. She's like a little G.I. Joe. G.I. Jane.
The honourable member for
with no brain.
I'm going to ask members to not have a conversation unless they want to take it behind the table. The honourable member for Timmins James Bay.
Kidd Mine in Timmins has been an economic driver in the north for the last 60 years, but the end is near, and we need to prepare for what comes next. Northern Ontario is no stranger to heartbreak, mine and mill closures, but it doesn't have to be this way in Timmins. We have a huge opportunity to shift investment to the Timmins Nickel Project. That's a project that ticks all the boxes: critical minerals, job creation, and supportive infrastructure. So to the Minister, will he commit to work with the city now to ensure that there are no delays in transitioning Timmins to a stronger and more sustainable future?
I'm from Timmins. What they've done there is absolutely horrible.
Honourable Minister for Natural Resources and Energy.
I want to thank my honourable colleague for the question.
It's a very rich town, lots of mining.
Very much the Crawford Mine offer enormous opportunities across this country. That is certainly true in Northern Ontario. The Crawford Mine is something that is a very important project moving forward. We just announced an investment of the Critical Minerals Infrastructure Fund in the Crawford Mine, and I'm certainly very happy to sit down with the folks in Timmins to have that conversation.
The honourable member for Edmonton Strathcona.
Mr. Speaker, late Friday,
her watermelon pen is getting bigger.
Mine expansion in the Rocky Mountains is going ahead.
She's gonna wear a watermelon suit next time.
This, despite the fact that the former minister promised me twice over the past 4 years that they would do that. Albertans don't want coal mining in the Rocky Mountains. This government pretends to care about our environment, even while making false promises to stop mining thermal coal and stop polluters in our beloved Rocky Mountains. When will the minister protect our Rocky Mountains instead of protecting the profits of billionaires?
The watermelon is growing.
The Honourable Minister of the Environment and Climate Change.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank my colleague for her question. As she is well aware, the Supreme Court last year
directed the government to review some of the elements under the Impact Assessment Act of Canada, which is what we've done. We still have a commitment to phase
Harry
out
pot smoker forgot his glasses.
by 2030, Mr. Speaker, and she also knows that 10 Indigenous...
And ask the honourable member who just asked the question to please, who had an opportunity to ask the question, to please extend that same opportunity for the person to answer it. The honourable minister can take it from the top.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As my colleague is well aware, the Supreme Court of Canada directed the government to make some changes to the Impact Assessment Act of Canada last year, which is what we've done. We still have a commitment to ban the export of thermal coal by 2030, Mr. Speaker. And she also knows that 10 Indigenous communities are supporting this project, which is why, in the end, the Impact Assessment Act, the Assessment Agency of Canada, decided that an evaluation was not necessary. Thank you.
Good job.
Good job. So proud of you.
Colleagues, during a statement from members, the honourable member from Vancouver Kingsway was making a statement in which a member had unwittingly walked in front of the camera. As it is normal on our tradition, we allow the honourable member to make a statement again. The honourable member from Vancouver Kingsway.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to honour one of Canada's finest public servants, our ambassador to Germany and former Premier of British Columbia, the late John Horgan. Raised by a single mum, John overcame great challenges to rise to the highest levels of public office. His political career actually started in this place, staffing NDP MPs. In 1991, he left to assume important roles in the BC NDP government, ending as Chief of Staff to the Premier. John entered elected office as an MLA in 2005 and ultimately became leader of the party, the official opposition, and a very popular premier. Throughout, John carved a deeply impactful path. He had an uncommon touch. He had that rare ability to rise above partisanship and win the respect of his opponents. He was witty, kind, and positive. In my view, John was the best off-the-cuff speaker in Canadian politics. We extend our deepest condolences to John's beloved Ellie and their 2 sons. John, thank you. Your kind shall not pass this way again.
I understand there are a couple of points of order.
So don't go nowhere, folks. They're supposed to be voting on Jagmeet's bill
Mr. Speaker, I believe
after the points of order.
Unanimous consent for the following motion. That the House recognize that today, on the International Day for Human Rights, the Nobel Committee has awarded the Nobel Peace Prize for 2024 to Nihon Hindankyo, the Japanese grassroots organization of atomic bomb survivors from Hiroshima and Nagasaki, also known as Hibakusha. Acknowledge that Hibakusha has worked tirelessly for decades to raise awareness of the catastrophic humanitarian consequences of nuclear weapon use. C. Recognize the ongoing relevance of their message in a world where the threat of nuclear weapons remains a pressing concern. D. Affirm that nuclear disarmament is a crucial step towards ensuring global peace and security. And E, Mr. Speaker, encourage the government to take concrete steps to honor this award, including enhanced engagement with the TPNW, participation in international disarmament efforts, and collaboration with civil society to advance the cause of nuclear abolition. Thank you.
All those opposed to the honourable member moving the motion will please say nay. Agreed. The House has heard the terms of the motion. All those opposed to the motion will please say nay. Carried. I see that the honourable member from Regina Capella is also rising on a point of order.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. During question period, there was a disturbance in the gallery, and it was very alarming to see the NDP member for Port Moody, Coquitlam, almost immediately not
jump
just
on that
it,
opportunity,
but it seemed to have been incorporated into her question. It was a prepared question. You could tell it was prepared because even after you...
I have to pause the point of order. While this was going on, I did get a text from somebody on the inside, and that guest that got removed because of the heckling was invited by the NDP. Just so you know, it was a prepared question for a reason. That person was invited by someone within the NDP party to heckle like that so that they could weaponize it immediately. It was 100% set up, and I have confirmation right on my phone.
You admonished her for pointing out the disturbance in the gallery. She could not adapt and repeated it 3 times. Now, it seems like this was a coordinated event.
Absolutely was.
Invited into the chamber, and the member knew that there would be such a disturbance. So I'd ask that you look into the matter, Mr. Speaker, and report back to the House as to how this individual gained entry into the gallery, on whose behalf was this person invited. This comes on the heels of a security scare today in the Wellington building and a protest in the Confederation building last week where members of Parliament were impeded access to their offices, threatened, and forced to face toxic behavior. This is a pattern of behavior we're seeing from the NDP. And as we come to the end of this session, Mr. Speaker, it's incumbent upon all members to respect the security and safety of this place.
Yeah. No, you can't set up questions like that with hecklers. That's a breach of security. It's unlawful. It's disgusting.
I see that the honourable member from New Westminster, Burnaby, is also rising on the same point of order. The honourable member.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. It's not surprising to me with the Conservatives who allowed for 3 weeks the occupation of downtown Ottawa, including impeding MPs coming to the West Block consistently, that they would raise this. The reality is, Mr. Speaker, the member from Port Moody Coquitlam properly corrected her question. I would suggest for Conservatives,
what the hell is this?
Competitive not only with one member, but their entire question period lineup often violates these standing orders and are very repetitive, that they should actually walk the talk and they should try to offer something more to Canadians during question period.
I see that the honourable member for Port Moody Coquitlam is rising on the same point of order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And since the member from Regina Capel has decided to be a mind reader, I just wanted to clarify that although the Conservatives are used to being told what to do, I am not. And Mr. Speaker, if you would so kindly check the notes that I gave to the pages here, you will see that I have handwritten notes about the very, very important interventions in Ottawa today from people around homelessness in this country and how desperate folks are. So I would just
100% set up.
Speaker, that I do have a mind of my own, unlike the Conservatives.
Exactly.
Yeah, right, dude.
I thank honourable members for their intervention.
I have handwritten notes, so it wasn't set up.
The chair will.
Let's go, Scheer.
This matter.
Shut up, Speaker. Let Scheer talk. No.
333, the House will now proceed to the taking of deferred recorded division on the motion of Ms. Landsman relating to the business of supply. Call on the members.
Okay, for those that missed it, there was a heckler earlier, right before the NDP, that NDP chick with the Ellen DeGeneres haircut was talking. Okay, right before she got up and asked a question, there was a heckler up in the gallery who said, recognize homelessness as a crisis. And then, like within 2 minutes after that heckle happened, the NDP with the Ellen DeGeneres haircut stood up and said, well, Mr. Speaker, just like the heckler said, we need to recognize this as a real issue. And then, of course, you can't acknowledge what happens in the gallery like that because it's not part of Parliament proceedings. So the House Speaker said, well, take that back. You can't ask the question. You can't recognize the heckling. Well, Mr. Speaker, the noise that was just made up in the gallery. No. Again, you can't ask that question. Redo it. Well, Mr. Speaker, the noise that's being made in Ottawa, like come on, bro. She had 3 chances to ask the question differently, and she couldn't. 100% set up.
Question est la suivante. Madame Landsman, appuyée par...
Ms. Landsman, seconded by Mr. Hallan, moved that given that after 9 years of this Liberal Prime Minister, 1. Monthly rent and mortgages payments have doubled. May I dispense? The 10-minute period for members voting electronically has started.
All right, so they're voting opposition motion, CPC, federal sales tax on new homes.
That it not be dispensed.
They're trying to move the GST on new homes.
So 1, monthly rent and mortgages payments have doubled. 2, the Organisation for Economic Cooperation and Development, OECD, finds that Canada has the most unaffordable housing market in the G7 and the second most unaffordable in the entire OECD. 3, Habitat for Humanity finds that almost 1/3 of Canadian millennials would consider relocating to another country to find affordable housing.
4, the PBO says that chronic homelessness is up by 38% across Canada since 2018, despite Liberal promises to eliminate it by...
Yeah, we want the GST removed on the sale of new homes.
Up to $50,000 or $2,500 per year in mortgage payments. The House called on the Liberal government to immediately eliminate the federal sales tax on new homes.
Let's see if Jagmeet votes for this to remove the tax or if he's going to sell out again.
To match this proposal.
Little fucker.
The 10-minute period for members voting electronically has started, and the House will now proceed to the vote for members participating in person.
I love the freaking enthusiasm from the Conservatives.
Mr. Bizet.
Man, I'd love to go to a Conservative pizza party. You know what I'm saying? Just hang out with these lads.
Monsieur Deltel. Mrs. Stubb.
They seem like good folks. Enthusiastic about fixing Canada. Canada first.
Mr. Barrett. Mrs. Gray. Mr. Barlow.
I like it.
Ms. Dancho. Mr. Ellis.
You know, a liberal pizza party, everyone would have the pronouns on a name tag, right?
Mr. Cooper.
Let's see if Jagmeet votes in favor of this. There's an actual chance that he could.
Mr. Jennis.
It's a nonpartisan
Mr. Lawrence.
issue, right? Removing the GST from new home sales.
Mr. Berthold. Mr. Workington.
See how it goes.
Mr. Chong. Mr. Abutayev. Mrs. Kuzi. Mr. Seaback. Ms. Ferrari. Mr. Chambers. Mr. Viss. Mr. Doherty. Mr. Macaulay, Edmonton West. Mr. Straw. Monsieur Brassard. Monsieur Godin. Mr. Hoback. Mr. Morant. Mrs. Roberts. Mr. Tucker. Mrs. Cramp-Nyman. Madame Vien. Mr. Patzer. Mrs. Gallant. Mr. Shipley. Mr. Muse. Mr. Redikoff. Mr. Van Popta. Mr. Waugh. Mr. Steinley. Mr. Culkins. Ms. Rude. Monsieur Généreux. Mr. Lobb. Mr. Mazer.
See what the rest of the votes look like, huh?
Mr. Davidson. Monsieur Paulus. Correction. Monsieur Martel. Monsieur Gould. Mr. Caputo. Mr. Epp. Mr. Zimmer. Mr. Cram. Mr. Tolmie. Mrs. Wagenthal. Mr. Albus. Mr. Bragdon. Mr. Dalton. Mr. Nader. Mrs. Falk.
Mader.
Battleford Lloydminster.
I watch too much kids movies, man.
Mr. Weber. Mr. McGuire. Mr. Reed. Mr. Shield. Mr. Falk Provencher. Mr. Mott. Mr. Arnold. Monsieur d'Entremont. Mr. Soroka. Mrs. Vecchio. Mr. Carey. Mr. Dowdle. Mr. Lake. Mr. Vierson. Mr. Fast. Mr. Leipert. Mr. Stewart, Toronto St. Paul. Mr. Julian. Mr. Massey. Ms. Matheson. Ms. McPherson. Ms. Idlout. Mr. McGregor. Ms. Dance. Mr. Backrack. Ms. Blaney. Madame Hughes. Monsieur Bouleris. Mr. Angus. Ms. Barron. Mr. Desjardins.
Oh, look at that.
Ms. Zarillo.
Holy crap.
Ms. Kwan.
Everybody's voting yeah.
Ms.
Holy shit!
May Senator Gulf Islands.
Mr. Morris.
Mr. Morris.
Que tous ceux qui s'opposent à la motion.
All those opposed to the motion.
And the Liberals don't want to do it?
Ms. Ng.
What the fuck is wrong with you?
Monsieur Guibault.
Ms. Hutchings.
Ms. Hutchings.
Ms.
NDP voted yes to end the GST on new homes. Holy shit!
Ms. Scrow.
Ms. Scrow.
Mr. Scarpaleggia.
Dude, this is a rare W for the NDP, but this shows how the Liberals are fucked in the head, man.
Ms. Sahota.
Mr.
Bloc and the Libs will be voting nay.
Ms. Jazek.
Ms. Jazik.
We'll have to see how the electronic votes look like, but
Madame Lalonde.
Madame Lalonde.
why would you vote against this?
Ms. Jones.
Ms. Jones.
Because it's not 60 days. See, if the Conservatives
Mr. Lamoureux.
Mr. Lamoureux.
worded it, end the GST tax on new home sales for 60 days, the Liberals would have been licking their lips. We love ourselves 60-day tax breaks.
Mr. May Cambridge.
Mr. May Cambridge.
Because it's more than 60 days.
Ms. Zerwick.
Mr. Hardy.
This is so weird.
Mr. Joe Howard.
This is so weird. The NDP and the Conservatives agree on something.
Mr. Duguid.
Mrs. Atwin.
And the Libs and the Bloc oppose it.
Mr. Sarai.
I have no idea how this is even going to turn out.
Mr. Kellaway.
Ms. Vandenbeld.
Ms. Vandenbeld.
Monsieur Sanson.
Monsieur Sanson.
Monsieur Serré.
Monsieur Serré.
Madame Koutrakis.
Bloc has more than the
Madame
NDP.
Brière.
Madame Brière.
Mr. Fisher.
Mr. Fisher.
Mr. Long.
Mr. Long.
Mr. McDonald Avalon.
Mr. McDonald Avalon.
Mr. McKinnon Coquitlam Port Coquitlam.
Mr. McKinnon.
Mr. McKinnon.
Mr. McLeod.
Mr. Morrissey.
Mr. Morrissey.
Madame Shanahan.
Madame Shanahan.
Ms. Sidhu Brampton South.
Ms. Cedar Brampton South.
Ms. Hefner.
Ms. Hefner.
Mr. Nur Mohammed.
Mr. Nur Mohammed.
Mr. Chang.
Mr. Chang.
Mrs. Zaid.
Mrs. Zaid.
Mr. Rogers.
Mr. Rogers.
Yeah, it's going to fall. Even the Greens said yes. It's going to fall if all of the Bloc votes against it. But they might have some electronic
Madame
votes that are contrary to each other.
Mr. Ali.
Mr. Ali.
This is so weird.
Mr. Baines.
Ms. Bradford.
Ms. Bradford.
Madame Diab.
Madame Diab.
Mr. Gahir.
Mr. Gahir.
Mr. Hanley.
Mr. Hanley.
Madame Lapointe.
Madame Lapointe.
Mr. Meow.
Mr. Meow.
Ms. Taylor Roy.
Mr. Meow.
Ms. Thompson.
Ms. Thompson.
Monsieur Terrien. Madame Michaud.
I'm sorry, that caught me off guard.
Monsieur.
There's the Bloc voting nay.
Madame Gaudreau.
Madame Gaudreau.
You.
Larouche.
Madame Larouche.
Monsieur Barcelo Duval.
Monsieur Barcelo Duval.
Madame Vignola.
Madame Vignola.
Monsieur.
It's to end the GST,
Madame Sinclair.
the federal sales tax on new homes.
Madame Desbiens.
Madame
Why would you vote against that?
La Chambre attendra maintenant.
Now they're going to do
House
electronic
will now
votes.
Wait for the electronic voting period to end before resuming its proceedings.
I'm going to have to mute the audio because they got that weird classical. All right, let's see. Nay for the Blocs and the Libs. Yay for the Conservatives. Okay. And the Libs and the Bloc all saying nay. I don't get it. See, this is the part of politics that doesn't make any sense to anybody. Like this is never mind the Conservatives pushing forward this motion. This is good for Canadians. This is really, really good for Canadians. Why is it that the Liberals and other parties are voting for things that are against things that are good and beneficial for Canadians? Dude, I don't care. This I might be alone on this. I might be alone on this, okay? Maybe you feel differently, maybe you don't. But if I close my eyes, I don't give a shit what party puts something forward. I don't care. If the Liberals actually put something forward that's good for Canadians long term, I'm gonna leave my bias and my opinion at the door. I'm gonna say, hey, that's actually pretty good. I like that. I've yet to really see it happen. When I have seen it happen, I do mention it and say, wow, that's a rare W for the Liberals or for Jagmeet or for the NDP, right? But I don't care what party puts something forward. I just want life to be better for Canadians. I don't give a shit if it's the NDP that puts it forward. I don't give a shit if it's the Liberals that put it forward. I don't care. I don't care what party gets to say, hey, we did this. I don't care. I just want life to be better for me, for you, for my kids, for my kids' kids. Should I be lucky enough, right? Like, I don't know. For future generations. It's so freaking bizarre. But that's the thing about politics. It's ego, right? We're going to work together. We're going to block their motion because it's them doing it, right? It's the other guys. And then we're going to work together with these other parties and we're going to make sure that we push it forward with our name. It's going to be worded a little differently, but it needs to be our name on it. It's just this tit for tat thing, man. I don't like it. I do not like it. It's so vindictive. Yeah, there's Trudeau voted against it. G.I. Joe Lee, Han Dong voted against it. Yves François, sug on these, Yves. Sug on these. It don't make no sense to me. I don't understand. It's got nothing to do. Jagmeet voted yay. Like, Jagmeet and Pierre voted yay on something together. Did Scheer troll again? Where's Scheer? Did he vote? Scheer voted nay. For crying out loud. There's something so funny about Scheer.
I wish to inform the House that the electronic voting period has ended.
I mean, it's going to fail anyways.
Vote due to technical difficulties.
He's not the breaking vote.
Use the raise hand function and the chair will recognize them. The table will now compile the results of the vote.
I see you, Andrew Scheer. Oh. 186.
I declare the motion rejected.
186 to 146.
The House will now proceed to the taking of the deferred recorded division on the previous question to the motion to concur in the 8th report of the Standing Committee on Public Accounts. The question is on the previous question. Mr. Lamoureux, seconded by Mr. Chiang, moved.
I think that's it. I think
that this question be now put.
Standing Committee and Public Accounts. Yeah, we're not going to watch that. That's it for the votes today. That's it. That's all she wrote. Folks, that's it, man. That's it. I like Andrew Scheer. He's a funny guy. And he votes against his own party's bills, and he's like, I'm sorry. There was a mistake. No, he knows what he's doing. He's a funny guy. But most of this stuff just flies over people's heads, right? You see the parties. Okay, this party's voting that way, that party's voting that way. When you look at the individual people, Andrew Scheer somehow always accidentally votes against the bills that he and his party are pushing forward. He's just a funny guy like that. It's absolutely funny. But that's why we watch this stuff, right? That's why we got a fine eye. That's why we got 125,000+ subscribers on this channel, over 400 some on the main channel, right? Because we pay attention to them details. That's where we're going to end the stream, everybody. I appreciate everyone tuning in. We had a phenomenal stream today. It was good to see Trudeau and Pierre go toe-to-toe. Again, they're going to do it tomorrow. Tomorrow's caucus leader day. So be sure to tune in tomorrow for that. Make sure to pay attention later on this channel and on MSB for other videos. I got a highlight reel coming out here any minute on MSB for those that weren't able to pay attention to or tune in for the full stream. So make sure you go over to Mr. Sunshine and check that out here. I'm going to finish off with reading a couple of super chats that I missed. Danny Cummings with the 2 saying Trudeau thinks he wore better than Trudeau thinks he wore OT better than him. I don't know what that means, Danny, but I appreciate it. The Liberals and the NDP are tools. Oh, wait, tools are useful, says PJ Peltier with the 5. That's right. Tools are useful. Very useful. And Cafe W with the 421. Extremely specific. Here's the $4.51 I'm going to save from the GST break. Yeah, I like that. That's a good one. I like that. Anyone who doesn't want their GST break, feel free to super chat it. That's awesome. I appreciate that. That's the level of comedy we like at this channel here. All right, peace and love, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll see you guys on another live stream tomorrow. Thanks for tuning in on your way out. If you haven't yet already, I'd like to encourage you guys one last time, hit the like button. Come on, it's free to do. It's free, and subscribe to the channel. All right, it might be in your algorithm, but you never know. YouTube is kind of tricky dicky with those things. So subscribe and hit that little bell notification. The little tiny bell that shows up once you are subscribed so you can be notified of upcoming videos. But more importantly, these live streams. Peace and love. Enjoy the rest of your day. Bye for now.